Imagine standing inside the walls of an ancient palace. The stone floors have been worn smooth by generations of officials, soldiers, and servants. Outside, dynasties rise and fall, borders shift, and millions of lives change. Inside, one figure remains seated on the throne for decades. In Imperial China, time itself often bent around a single ruler. For thousands of years, Chinese history was shaped by emperors whose reigns stretched far beyond an ordinary lifetime. Some ascended the throne as children, others ruled until old age, watching the world change around them while they remained at its center. A long reign was believed to be a sign of harmony between heaven and earth, proof that the emperor had the mandate of heaven. But was ruling for a long time truly a blessing? Tonight's story is not just about power or crowns. It is about endurance, ambition, success, and quiet decay. It is about emperors who ruled so long that they outlived their enemies, their advisors, and sometimes even their own golden age. We will walk through the lives of the longest reigning emperors in Chinese history, from the disciplined and brilliant Kangxi Emperor to the ambitious but controversial Qianlong Emperor, from the iron-willed Han Wu to the withdrawn and silent Wanli Emperor. Each of them ruled for decades, but each paid a different price for time. As you listen, you may notice a pattern: the longer an emperor ruled, the heavier the crown became. Early years were often filled with reform, energy, and vision. Later years were marked by fatigue, complacency, or unchecked corruption. Power, when held too long, has a way of changing both the ruler and the empire. If you enjoy historical stories told through calm narration and deep reflection, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue bringing thoughtful, long-form stories to you, especially the kind you can listen to quietly at night. Now, settle in. Let the noise of the modern world fade away, and let us return to a time when one man's lifespan could define the fate of an empire. History often treats a long reign as proof of greatness. To rule for decades seems to suggest wisdom, stability, and the favor of heaven itself. In Imperial China, time on the throne was never just a number. It was a sign. As long as an emperor ruled, the world believed order still existed. But time is not neutral. It does not simply protect power. It exposes it. Across China's long imperial history, the emperors who ruled the longest reveal a deeper truth: time magnifies everything. Strength becomes legendary, but weakness becomes structural. Vision matures or slowly turns into habit. And the longer a ruler remains on the throne, the more clearly history can see who he truly was. Let us begin with the man whose reign defined what longevity could achieve. Kangxi, power that grew with time. The Kangxi Emperor ascended the throne at the age of 8. At an age when most children are still learning how the world works, Kangxi was expected to embody it. Real power lay in the hands of regents who ruled in his name, and few believed the boy would ever become more than a symbol. Instead of resisting, Kangxi observed. He learned the language of court politics long before he spoke it himself. He studied which officials survived by flattery and which served through honesty. When the moment came, he removed the regents with precision rather than violence, securing authority without destabilizing the empire. It was the first sign of a ruler who understood that longevity depended not on force alone, but on patience and timing. Over 61 years, Kangxi ruled actively. He crushed internal rebellions that threatened to tear the Qing dynasty apart. He stabilized an empire still recovering from the fall of the Ming, restoring confidence among officials and commoners alike. He expanded borders, strengthened central authority, and ensured the dynasty's survival. Yet Kangxi's greatness was not defined solely by conquest. He traveled constantly, inspecting flood control systems, visiting provinces, and speaking directly with scholars. He studied mathematics and astronomy, understanding that accurate calendars reinforced imperial legitimacy. To him, knowledge was governance, and governance was responsibility. Kangxi never withdrew from power. His authority matured as he did. When he died, the Qing dynasty was not exhausted by his long reign, it was secured by it. But history rarely allows perfection to repeat itself. Qianlong, when time becomes too heavy. The Qianlong emperor inherited an empire at its peak. The treasury was full, borders were secure, and institutions had been refined by generations before him. His early reign reflected this strength. He expanded Qing territory to its greatest extent and became a generous patron of art, culture, and literature. To later generations, Qianlong became the image of imperial splendor. Yet time slowly altered the balance. As decades passed, confidence hardened into certainty. Certainty became isolation. Qianlong began to value loyalty over competence and comfort over challenge. Officials learned that pleasing the emperor mattered more than serving the state. Corruption spread quietly, not through rebellion, but through familiarity. Lavish projects drained resources. Military campaigns continued more out of pride than necessity. The court grew elegant, but increasingly detached from reality. Qianlong abdicated after 60 years, claiming respect for Kangxi's legacy. Yet abdication did not mean withdrawal. He continued to influence the court from behind the scenes, exercising power without responsibility. Decline followed not because the empire lacked strength, but because it had grown accustomed to excess. Qianlong's reign reveals a difficult truth. A long reign can preserve stability or delay collapse until it becomes inevitable. Han Wu, the cost of endless ambition. Centuries earlier, Emperor Han Wu ruled for 54 years during the Han Dynasty. Unlike Kangxi or Qianlong, Han Wu ruled with relentless ambition. He believed expansion was survival, and survival required constant action. He pushed China westward, opening the Silk Road and connecting the empire to distant civilizations. He broke the power of rival nomadic states and established Confucianism as the state ideology, shaping Chinese governance for the next 2,000 years. But ambition has a cost when given too much time. Wars became constant. Taxes rose. Peasants bore the burden of glory they would never see. Entire regions were drained to support campaigns that expanded borders but exhausted the state. The empire grew larger, but thinner. In his later years, famine and unrest followed. Han Wu, now old, began to recognize the weight of his decisions. In rare moments of reflection, he acknowledged that his ambition had pushed the empire beyond its limits. His long reign teaches us that time rewards vision but punishes excess just as severely. Wanli, when the emperor vanishes. Not all long reigns are defined by action. The Wanli emperor ruled for 48 years during the Ming dynasty, but for nearly half that time, he withdrew from governance entirely. Disillusioned by court politics and personal frustrations, he stopped attending audiences, stopped reading memorials, and stopped deciding. The empire continued on momentum alone. Officials fought among themselves. Military funding weakened. Corruption spread unchecked. On paper, the state still functioned. In reality, authority at the center had dissolved into silence. Wanli lived long, but his absence hollowed the dynasty from within. When crises emerged, no decisive power remained to confront them. The Ming dynasty would fall not long after his death. His reign shows that longevity without presence can be as destructive as tyranny. Xuanzong of Tang. A golden age that could not last. Emperor Xuanzong of the Tang dynasty ruled for 43 years, offering one of history's most tragic contrasts. The first half of his reign was extraordinary. Culture flourished. Poetry, music, and art reached remarkable heights. Governance was efficient, and the empire prospered. Then came complacency. Warnings were ignored. Trust was misplaced. The Anlushan rebellion erupted, devastating the empire and forcing Xuanzong to flee the capital. Though he lived for many years afterward, the Tang dynasty never recovered its former strength. His reign proves that time does not protect greatness, it merely postpones its reckoning. The truth of long rule. Across dynasties, a pattern emerges. Long reigns often begin with energy, reform, and vision. They end with fatigue, isolation, or quiet decay. Power held too briefly may fail to shape history. Power held too long risks being shaped by habit rather than wisdom. These emperors ruled not only over land and people, but over time itself. Some learned to grow alongside it. Others were slowly eroded by it. And perhaps that is the final truth of long reigns in Imperial China. Time does not make a ruler great. It merely gives history more material to judge them. When we look back at the longest reigning emperors of China, it is tempting to measure success in years alone. 60 years on the throne sounds like victory. 50 years sounds like strength. But history whispers a quieter truth. Time does not judge kindness, wisdom, or restraint. It only reveals them. Some emperors used long reigns to build stability and lasting systems. Others slowly became prisoners of their own authority, unable or unwilling to adapt. A throne does not grow lighter with familiarity. It grows heavier, year by year, decision by decision. Perhaps that is why long reigns are so fascinating. They show us power stretched across a human lifetime. They show us how ideals fade, how energy wanes, and how even the strongest rulers must eventually confront decline. An emperor who rules briefly may be forgotten, but one who rules too long risks watching his legacy unravel before his eyes. In a way, these stories are not just about emperors. They are about leadership, time, and the limits of control. They remind us that no position, no matter how powerful, escapes change. As this story comes to an end, imagine the palace growing quiet. The candles burn low. The emperor, once young and ambitious, now listens to the sound of distant footsteps echoing through empty halls. The empire will continue after him, shaped by both his successes and his failures. If you found this story calming, thoughtful, or meaningful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps keep these long, quiet stories alive. Now, let the past rest where it belongs. Thank you for listening. Good night, and may your dreams be peaceful.